From educators to authors, join us now on our new journey as podcasters. In our podcast, Author Talk with L&B, we will talk about our author journey and share our stories in order to help you share yours. You will get an in-depth look of the how-tos we were looking for when we got started. Stay tuned for topics ranging from how to get published to how to stay inspired. Hi, you are here with Author Talk with L&B, where we will get you to where you need to be.
Yes, welcome. We are so excited to just be talking about the writing process and all that we're kind of doing with our books and things like that. Last time we talked about the writing process, and we're going to continue on with that. We talked about the start of writing our books, the self-editing part, professionally editing and formatting our books. And then we talked a lot about the illustration and design, like getting your illustrations. Where do you go to get your illustrations done? Formatting, getting your book design, your book description, bio, and dedication. So if you missed that episode, please go back to our last episode and listen to the talk we talked about with the writing process and the illustration and design process. But today, we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the publishing process, because it's one thing to go through the process, but it's another thing to get to the end of the process and then ask yourself, okay, what do I do from here? I've done everything else. Now what do I do? So Laura, we've in our book, the cover, the design, everything looks great. Our formatting is excellent. We have our illustrations. The book is finally coming together. What do we do next?
Okay, so in order to actually sell your book, you do need an ISBN number, and to get a LCCN number, which is the Library of Congress catalog number, in order for your book to be cataloged in libraries and found in libraries, and the ISBN number to be sold in bookstores and anywhere books are sold. Next step is to go to those respective websites and get those things. There are some times that for ISBN numbers, there's deals where you can get it like a bundle of like 10 ISBN numbers. Mind you, those are separate from the barcodes. You sometimes will need to additionally buy a barcode. That means that if you just want an ISBN number, you could do that separately. But if you want a barcode, you would need to also purchase that. But in order to get your LCCN number, you do need to go to that website and you need to fill out a pre-publication link. But it is easy to navigate once you get to that website. Let's just say you are self-publishing and you want your book out right away. Give yourself some time. If you really want to get your Library of Congress catalog number, get it early, because sometimes if they are very busy, it may take longer than a couple weeks. It could take a few days. You just need to plan ahead of time so that you are able to get it in your book. For my first book, I didn't get the LCCN number, but they do allow for you to make donations of your book so that it can be included in their library. But I would recommend getting it ahead of time so that you have that in your book.
Yeah, I agree with you. No, I think, Laura, like you said it, the reason why we get an ISBN number is so if we get our book into libraries, it's easily located, it's identified by the ISBN number. And I think it's also important to note that if you are publishing through Amazon, which means you're uploading your material through Amazon in order to sell on Amazon's platform, they do give you a free ISBN number. But mind you, that ISBN number does not work for libraries. That ISBN number is only for Amazon's database so that they can identify your book through the ISBN number. It does not work with the other platforms or a Library of Congress at all. So what I would recommend is that you invest in a ISBN number. Like Laura said, if you decide that, you know what, I want to get 10 ISBN numbers because I know that I'm going to be publishing a lot of books, it's more bang for your buck. I mean, I know it's a little riskier. You're like, okay, well, what if I don't even publish these books? Well, if you are looking to make this a career and you know that you have a lot more writing inside of you because, you know, you want to put out more books. That's how you become even more known. Then I would say if you have the funds, go ahead and get that bundle package because it's going to save you money, but you are going to need that ISBN number. You're going to want it. And you can get just the free Amazon one, but if you really are thinking more long-term, you're thinking more bigger, even global, then invest in yourself and go ahead and get that ISBN number.
Yeah, and Brittany, one thing to add on to, like, if you do get the free one from Amazon and you do want your book in bookstores, it is a conflict of interest for a lot of, especially indie bookstores, to get books that are from or only available on Amazon with Amazon barcodes. So if you do get your own, that also sets you apart and gives you more flexibility to get to more bookstores and get your book sold. Unless you know, if that's what you want to do, you just want to get your book in the universe and do it through a platform like Amazon, then definitely go for it. But if you do want the versatility, we would recommend taking that time, getting that investment if you're able to, so that you can market it in other stores.
I agree with that. In fact, Laura, you told me something I want you to elaborate on a little bit because you had me thinking about something that you said. We'll come back to this
Sure.
again, but when you go into bookstores, you did tell me they kind of frown upon Amazon. Can you talk a little bit about that so our
Sure.
hearers will know, like, just be able to pick the best option for them?
Sure. You know what? I think it ultimately comes down to the fact that Amazon is in direct competition with these local bookstores or indie bookstores. As a bookstore, you're really trying to get the book sold to your community, to everyone. And if people are going and turning towards Amazon to get a book instead of the bookstore, that takes away obviously from the sales from the bookstore, but it also, like, it is a conflict of interest for that bookstore to pick up your book. But if you are more of an indie author, then they are more receptive. At the bookstore, I would recommend getting a website, or if you do have a website, linking your website when you're sharing about your book and making sure you have your, at least your book cover and information on your website so that they can see it.
I completely agree with that. I think that, yes, it's good to go ahead and upload to Amazon, especially if you want to use that platform. You can do drop shipping. They can print your books. It's just a very easy way to get your books on a platform to be sold. But there are other ways to do it as well. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. I have both. I have my book uploaded to Amazon, but then I also sell through my website. And so I do both. I think that there are options for you. And we're going to talk a little bit about those options going into it. So we talked about Amazon. So you have your book done. Do it two ways. You can ship all of your books. Like, let's say you use an outside source to print your books. You can ship your books to Amazon for a fee, and they can drop ship your books. Like, they can ship them out for you. I think that you can also ship them yourself through Amazon.
Yeah.
And also what I do is I allow them, they print the books for me. So they take a fee out of that. I do have my own book get printed somewhere else, but they do that if people buy from Amazon. So you kind of get some options with that.
Can I interject for a second?
Oh, absolutely.
So we do have the print by demand for Kindle Direct Publishing from Amazon, but let's just say you did ship out their books. If they're doing it through their website, can you help navigate that for us?
Yeah, I sell on my website, and I actually make more profit doing it through my website because guess what? You keep more of the funds, right? You're paying out, you get a royalty, but you're paying out. Like, you can price your book, but let's say you price your book at $12 and and this is just an estimate based on the number of pages you have and the weight of your book and things like that. But let's say you charge $12 for your book, okay? Because you don't want to overcharge. You don't want to go above the market. So you pay $12 for your book. More than likely, you sell one book, you might make $4, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. So there you go. So then you have to sell more. Whereas selling myself, printing my own books, yes, I have to put the work into the the stamps and the mailings and stuff like that, but I do profit more off of my books. I
Mhm.
almost, let's see, maybe double. I
Oh, that's
profit
awesome.
double
What do you use to
doing it
ship
that
out?
way.
Is it just UPS or?
Ooh, that is such a good question. So media mail is what you're
Okay.
going to use. If you do first class mail or any of the other things, it's going to
Mhm.
cost more. Now, media mail has gone up from the time I first started, which was like a year and a half ago till now, but
Okay.
you're going to use media mail. Media mail will charge you less. It's like $3 and something per mailing. I mean, that's not cheap, but if you get your printing company that will print your books at a low cost, you're still profiting a nice
Mhm.
amount. Media mail does take a little bit longer to get, like maybe a day or two longer to get to the place, but I think it's the best bet, you know. So
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot that we are talking about here. It's okay if you're hearing this and this like seems daunting. It is daunting, but if you take it one thing at a time, it is definitely feasible. And we are covering a lot. So, like Brittany said, we already talked about the writing process, like 4 criteria that we feel are the steps that you need to take in order to get your book out in the universe. So, we talked about the writing process, we talked about the
yeah.
illustration design process. We now have talked about the publishing process, and now we want to lead into the marketing process. So how do you get your book
Yeah.
out there? Unless we missed, is
Oh,
there anything else
you
that
know
we want to
what,
talk about
Laura, can
publishing?
you talk?
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about
Okay.
Amazon. Can you talk about uploading to Ingram Sparks because
Oh,
that's
sure.
another platform you
Definitely.
can use, and the pros and the cons and all of those things.
Sure. And as you were asking me that question, I also thought about another thing is when you were talking about pricing, if you're also listening to this and you're wondering, okay, so I need to get an ISBN number, I need to figure out what price my book is, you can look online and look at the books that you even have at home. I looked at other books that were very similar in theme and number of pages.
That's
I
good.
looked even the color scheme. I looked at a ton of other books just to sort of gauge what price I should price my book. And you also can think strategically, like based on if you are printing it through either a platform, self-publishing platform, how much that costs. If you're doing it like another printing service where you are it, incurring a lot of the cost yourself, like all of those things factor into it. But now back to Brittany's question. So in addition to platforms like KDP, you can also put your book on Ingram Spark, which is a
Hmm.
wholesale distributor that bookstores can get books at. So as I'm going to bookstores and I'm the author inquiring about whether they're interested in my book, it is definitely appealing if your book is available through Ingram Spark. That way it's not sold through consignment. They could just look up your book through Ingram Spark and they can order directly from Ingram Spark. It also gives you the opportunity to create like a hardcover version of your book,
Yeah.
and that also is linked up with Amazon if you do really like Amazon.
You mentioned what is an indie author? Is that just for those who don't know the terminologies? Hmm.
Just it's another way of saying like you're self-published, and there's different like iterations of what that looks like. So it's like an independent bookstores. You could
Yeah.
be an indie or independent author. You don't necessarily have an agent per se,
Right.
but you're an author. Your book is out in the universe, and that's wonderful. Whatever path you choose is wonderful. You should
Yeah.
be extremely proud of yourself. It is not easy putting your work out there in the universe. It was not something I took lightly because it was something very personal and dear to me. And also it, it's sort of nerve-wracking to
Yeah.
put your writing out there. I don't know about how you felt, Brittany, but I
It
did. I was like, oh
is.
my gosh, everybody's gonna actually read this. Well, I hope they like it. I sent text, oh, they're like, I got your book. And like, I hope you like it.
Yeah.
The emoji that we're like hiding.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. For sure. So I guess the biggest takeaway from this podcast is to know that there are options. Like the way you want to do it is completely up to you, and we're just basically giving those options to you, and you can navigate those and decide what's the best for you. So as we talked about before, you can go through a self-publishing company. A self-publishing company is when a company, you pay them a flat fee and they will do all the work for you. And sometimes they'll require you to find your illustrators. Others may have an illustrator available. I've talked to both self-publishing companies. Some say you have to go find your illustrator. Others say, yep, we have these illustrators. What style do you like the best? So again, if you're a first-time author, you have the extra funds, and you say to yourself, you know what, I just feel so new to this and I just don't want to tackle that on my own, then maybe finding a company that can do it for you might be the best option for you. Now, I will say this, you're going to pay more. You're going to pay more doing it that way. I did do it that way the first time, and I don't really have regrets aside from the fact that I paid more, but I learned a lot. But I will say I'll never do that again now that I've learned. So now that I've learned how to do all of the different steps, the second book I did on my own. The third book that I'm working on, I'm going to do on my own. And basically, it's just taking step by step by step, the processes that we talked about, the steps that we talked about, and just kind of doing it by yourself. Now, there are times where I go on Fiverr or other platforms and I sub out work. Like if I don't want to do the formatting, I will ask my illustrator, do you do formatting? I sub out editing work, whereas a self-publishing company might have the editing service. And then there's the hybrid model, which is kind of like a half and half type of thing, or you do some of the work, they do some of it. So it's up to you what you want to do. And it's just based on where you're at in the process, I would say. Right,
Yeah.
Laura, would you say
Yeah,
that?
definitely. And we're here to help you, and we'll continue to help you. And we do want to wrap up this episode of our podcast with the
Yes.
final criteria. And we're going to go a little bit more next time about this, but ultimately the marketing, that's like the biggest, most important part. Cause like you could have done all this work, and if nobody knows about it, they're not able to really enjoy your book. So we're going to delve really deep, but the two biggest things that we would recommend is one, starting a launch team to help you. So whether it be friends, family, colleagues, you're going to use their platforms to help spread the word about your book leading up to and on your publication date, and then even after the week leading to your publication and the week after. I would say they are the most critical, especially for sales of your book. And then the second criteria is marketing, is just in general, like using different platforms like social media, word of mouth. Word of mouth is probably the biggest way. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Brittany, before the end of this episode. We will talk a little bit more next time.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we'll take the whole time because that is like the
It's a
most
big one.
important part.
Yeah.
We've done so many different things to help us get our book out there. So we just want to thank you so much for joining in. And we're so excited to kind of get into that marketing piece, because that's a big one. It's also a fun one if you know what you're doing to get, like when you see the results, it's just rewarding. So thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. And we will see you next time on our podcast with L&B. Thank you for joining us on Author Talk with L&B. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights to guide you on your journey as an inspiring author. Remember, every great story starts with a single word. So keep writing, keep dreaming, and never stop believing in your voice. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with fellow authors. Join us next time for more tips, interviews, and encouragement. Until then, keep turning your pages and crafting your narrative. Happy writing.